This is Command Post, a series of discussions about military matters from Time and the Center for a New American Security.
Mike, President Obama recently announced that all American troops will leave Iraq by the end of this year. Can you talk about the pluses and the minuses of that decision?
Yeah, it's a big one, and we're going to learn a lot. This is one of those questions where you can actually see if the person answering was right 6 months later. So let me do my best. I think that there's a good chance that it'll work out okay. The Iraqis have come a long way. I've been generally impressed most of the time with their ability to walk up to the brink and then back away. And I'm hoping that they're at a point where they're capable of taking the next step. All that said, I did not favor this decision. I was in the school of many who would have preferred to keep 10 or 15,000 Americans there. But the Iraqis seemed to really be pretty adamant that they weren't going to give us much of a decent deal for staying. I wish we were staying, but I think the world will not end in all likelihood. And I think President Obama can't really be blamed too much for the outcome.
And Larry, do you agree with that assessment?
Well, I think it was the right decision. And I think it will have good results for us because it undermines the al-Qaeda or the narrative of many of these terrorist groups who were occupiers. We weren't. We know that. But you didn't when we went in there because people saw us as kind of the second coming of the British. It enables us to save a few dollars, and heaven knows we, it's $45, $50 billion a year we're spending there. And when we go to negotiate in Afghanistan, which we will at some point, I think people will say, well, gee, they do keep their word. They agreed and they left. Wow, we've never seen a superpower do that. So I think on balance it is good for us. I think it's good for the Iraqis. They're going to have to, take control of their own destiny and make the decisions that they may have been able to postpone if they used us as a crutch.
Let me push back on the money a little bit first, because we are still going to leave a State Department contingent in Iraq, and it's going to have a fairly large number now of private security contractors who are going to be filling roles that the military would have filled, not necessarily at a lower cost. Well,
yeah, but I mean, if you take a look this year, if you take a look at what they call the OCO budget, the Overseas Contingency Operation budget, it's about $50 billion for Iraq. The State Department's asking 5 to 10. They're not asking for 40. So I'm thinking you could save $30 to $40 billion. And the other thing is, I think if we had stayed and then something happened, that would have, I think, undermined us. We're leaving with dignity. We've done our job. It's up to you. And we're not out of the region. We're in Kuwait. So the idea that somehow or another, if they really wanted us back in, we could go in quickly.
War is politics by other means, gentlemen. And is it peculiar or disturbing at all to you the way the Republicans have jumped on this as sort of Obama abandoning Iraq? I mean, if you go back to 06, 07, prior to the surge, when it was just getting underway, things were so tough. It was general betrayus. We were on the verge of losing. Now we have prevailed. And yet it seems a lot of folks are leery of acknowledging we have prevailed.
My take is that the level of partisanship on this is within bounds. I don't agree with a lot of what Republicans are saying right now. I was the only Democrat who signed a letter by the so-called Foreign Policy Initiative to go along with a lot of my Republican friends asking the president to keep troops. But since then, I've parted company with some of them on the level of criticism. But I don't think most of their criticism has been totally unreasonable. Unlike some of what's going on in our domestic debate where the two sides just can't even work together. This is more in the nature of, hard-headed, hard-fisted debate. And the two sides have made their cases. And frankly, the whole issue is at a low enough level of visibility in the American political dialogue right now that I don't think it's going to get carried away too far.
Maybe I come from an older tradition. It used to be, I went back and looked at when we left Korea. Nobody accused Eisenhower of selling out or anything like that. And the idea that somehow or another Obama could have negotiated this ignores the other side and ignores the fact that it was a Republican president who agreed to this. But the idea that somehow or another, if you drove a harder bargain, you could have made this, I just don't think they understand the nature of the Iraqis. And, when I asked one of Maliki's guys about where he said we repelled the invaders, he said, well, no, we didn't want you here. And he said, we hope you leave this place in as good shape as the British did when they left.